Jake Simmons had been working at McDonald's for 3 years, 2 months, and 17 days. Not that he was counting. Each shift blended into the next in a haze of fryer grease and customer complaints. Today was particularly brutal. A youth soccer tournament had just let out, and he'd spent the last hour frantically assembling Happy Meals for what felt like every child in the Northern Hemisphere. "I'm responsible for feeding armies," Jake muttered to himself as he stuffed another plastic toy into a cardboard box. He'd written that exact phrase on his resume when applying for the assistant manager position last month. The district manager had actually laughed out loud during the interview. Jake wiped sweat from his brow with his uniform sleeve, inadvertently smearing ketchup across his forehead. Just as he reached for another handful of fries, the air around him began to shimmer. The fluorescent lights of the McDonald's kitchen flickered, and a strange humming filled his ears. "Not now," Jake groaned, assuming it was another power surge. The ice cream machine's already broken enough as the world dissolved around him in a flash of crimson light. When Jake's vision cleared, he found himself standing on what appeared to be the bridge of a spaceship. Towering figures in ornate armor surrounded him, their skin various shades of gray and green, with glowing eyes fixed on him in what might have been curiosity or hunger. He couldn't tell which. The largest of the aliens stepped forward. Nearly 8 feet tall, with broad shoulders and crimson armor adorned with intricate patterns reminiscent of Gothic cathedrals, the creature cut an imposing figure. A horned helmet framed a face with multiple eyes and what appeared to be mandibles instead of a jaw. "You are the one who feeds armies?" The alien's voice boomed through the chamber, somehow perfectly understandable despite the otherworldly resonance. Jake clutched the Happy Meal he was still holding. I mean, technically, yes, but mostly just hungry kids after soccer practice." The massive alien turned to his subordinates. "The human admits it. He has experience in mass nutritional warfare." He turned back to Jake. "I am Warlord Krazak, Supreme Commander of the Vexorian Fleet. You have been selected to lead our military nutritional division." "There's been a mistake," Jake stammered. "I'm just a McDonald's worker. I flip burgers, I make fries." A smaller, blob-like alien oozed forward. "Greetings, Supreme Nutritional Commander. I am Blorg, your cultural liaison." The creature's voice was surprisingly cheerful. "The Vexorians intercepted your transmission, claiming expertise in feeding armies. Our previous nutritional commander was digested in an unfortunate incident involving what you humans call pineapple pizza." "That wasn't a transmission. That was on my resume," Jake protested. A stern-looking alien with a permanent scowl stepped forward. "Warlord, this human appears inadequate. I recommend immediate ejection into space." This, Jake would later learn, was Lieutenant Miktha. Warlord Krazak silenced the lieutenant with a gesture. "What is that you hold, human? It radiates a strange energy." Jake looked down at the Happy Meal box in his hands. "This? It's just a kid's meal. Burger, fries, toy surprise." The entire bridge fell silent. After a moment, Warlord Krazak whispered reverently, "You provide sustenance and weaponry in the same tactical package?" "Weaponry? No, it's just a plastic toy. See?" Jake opened the box and pulled out a small figurine from the latest animated movie. The alien command staff gasped collectively. Warlord Krazak carefully took the toy as if it were made of nitroglycerin. A psychological warfare device disguised as nutrition. The young of our enemies would be simultaneously nourished and distracted. He turned to his crew. "This human possesses strategic genius beyond our understanding." And that was how Jake Simmons, high school dropout and minimum wage employee, became supreme commander of nutritional warfare for the most feared alien armada in the galaxy. Over the next few weeks, Jake found himself in an increasingly bizarre situation. His McDonald's uniform had been adorned with alien medals and insignia, making him look like a fast food dictator. The ship's galley had been retrofitted to his specifications, which mostly involved explaining what a deep fryer was and why ketchup packets were not, in fact, blood bombs. "The humans call this a Big Mac," Jake explained to Warlord Krozak during one of their daily briefings. "2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun." The warlord and his commanders listened with the intensity of generals reviewing battle plans. Lieutenant McThaw, still suspicious of Jake, took detailed notes on a holographic tablet. "And this provides optimal combat nutrition?" Krozak asked. "Well, not exactly," Jake admitted. "It's more of a comfort food." Blorg, who had become Jake's unofficial translator of human concepts, quickly interjected, "Comfort food is a strategic Earth resource that maintains morale during extended campaigns, Warlord." "Brilliant," Krozak declared. "We shall implement these Big Macs immediately." Jake watched in amazement as the alien warriors solemnly consumed Big Macs in what appeared to be a ritualistic ceremony, complete with chanting. They treated each bite as if it were a sacred communion. "They seem to be taking this very seriously," Jake whispered to Blorg. "The Vexorians have no concept of casual dining," Blorg explained. "All consumption is considered a military act. By introducing these foods, you're revolutionizing our entire approach to warfare." "But I'm not doing anything special. I'm just making fast food." "Precisely." Blorg's body jiggled with excitement. "Before you arrived, meals were strictly for sustenance. The concept of food bringing pleasure is radical to them." As days turned into weeks, Jake found himself oddly enjoying his new position. For the first time in his life, people, well, aliens, actually listened to him. His ideas were taken seriously, even when those ideas were just explaining the concept of dipping sauces. Even Lieutenant McThaw was beginning to show reluctant respect. After initially suggesting Jake be used as target practice, the lieutenant had gradually come to appreciate Jake's innovative approach, especially after Jake introduced him to the filet-o-fish. "This aquatic protein disc," McThaw had declared, "possesses tactical advantages I had not considered." Jake had simply nodded, not having the heart to explain that it was just a fish sandwich. 1 month into his unexpected career as an alien food commander, Jake was summoned to the bridge. The atmosphere was tense, with officers rushing about and holographic displays showing what appeared to be another massive spacecraft approaching. "Supreme Nutritional Commander," Warlord Krozak addressed Jake formally. "The Zolaxians approach for diplomatic negotiations. We have been at war with their empire for 3 centuries. "Okay," Jake said slowly. "And you're telling me this because you will lead the peace negotiations," Krozak declared. "Your Earth food diplomacy has transformed our approach to warfare. Now we wish to try it in peace." Jake felt panic rising in his chest. "Wait, you want me to negotiate with aliens you've been fighting for 300 years? I couldn't even negotiate a raise at McDonald's." "You underestimate yourself," Krozak said, placing a massive clawed hand on Jake's shoulder. "Your Happy Meals have shown us that intimidation is not the only path to victory. Sometimes, happiness is the ultimate weapon." Jake looked around at the expectant faces of the alien crew. Even Lieutenant McThaw was nodding in agreement. Somehow, he had fallen upward into becoming not just a fast food consultant, but an intergalactic diplomat. Fine, Jake sighed. But I'll need full access to the galley and all the supplies we've replicated from Earth. You shall have whatever you require, Krazak promised. As Jake headed to the galley to prepare for the most important meal of his life, literally, Blorg oozed alongside him. Any advice for dealing with these Zolaxians? Jake asked. They are a proud warrior race, much like the Vexorians, Blorg explained. But they place great emphasis on what they call the revelation of truth through consumption. So, they like honest food? In a manner of speaking. They believe that true intentions are revealed through shared meals. Jake nodded thoughtfully. Then I'll give them the most honest meal I know. The diplomatic chamber was a vast hall with a long table stretching down its center. The Vexorian delegation, led by Warlord Krazak, stood on one side. Across from them, the Zolaxians, tall, slender aliens with iridescent skin and elaborate head crests, regarded them with suspicion. Jake stood at the head of the table, sweating in his metal-adorned McDonald's uniform. Before him was his masterpiece, an elaborate spread of McDonald's greatest hits, from Big Macs to McNuggets, with the centerpiece being a glowing pyramid of Happy Meals. Esteemed delegates of the Zolaxian Empire, Jake began, his voice only slightly shaky. On Earth, we have a tradition of breaking bread together as a sign of friendship and trust. The lead Zolaxian, a regal figure with a particularly elaborate head crest, leaned forward. We do not see this bread you speak of, human. Is this some form of deception? It's just an expression, Jake explained quickly. What I mean is, I've prepared these foods to share with you in the spirit of peace. The Zolaxians approached the table cautiously. With ceremonial precision, they selected various items and began to eat. Jake held his breath. At first, things seemed to be going well. The Zolaxians appeared to enjoy the food, making curious chirping sounds that Blorg whispered were signs of approval. Then disaster struck. The lead Zolaxian suddenly clutched at his throat, his iridescent skin turning a sickly purple. Treachery, he gasped. The food contains dairy. They're lactose intolerant, Blorg whispered urgently to Jake. The cheese in the burgers. The diplomatic chamber erupted into chaos. Vexorian guards raised their weapons as Zolaxian diplomats drew their own. 3 centuries of war were about to resume because Jake had forgotten to ask about dietary restrictions. Wait! Jake shouted, desperate to salvage the situation. He grabbed one of the Happy Meal boxes and held it high. Before you start shooting, there's something else I want to share. The room fell silent as Jake dramatically opened the Happy Meal box and removed the toy inside, a small plastic figure that by sheer coincidence resembled a miniature version of the Zolaxian leader. The lead Zolaxian, still recovering from his dairy encounter, stared in astonishment. You have created an idol in my image? Jake, thinking quickly, nodded. Yes. On Earth, we honor our most respected, diplomatic partners this way. It's a symbol of our desire for friendship. The Zolaxian approached slowly and took the toy with reverence. In all our centuries of conflict, the Vexorians have never honored us thus. He turned to his delegation. Perhaps we have misjudged them, and this human's wisdom. Warlord Krazak, seizing the moment, stepped forward. The human Jake Simmons has shown us that there are alternatives to endless warfare. Perhaps it is time for a new approach. The Zolaxian leader nodded. We are willing to discuss terms, provided no more dairy products are involved. As the two alien leaders began formal peace discussions, Jake slumped into a chair, exhausted but relieved. Blorg oozed up beside him. "You have achieved the impossible," the blob-like alien said admiringly. 3 centuries of war, ended by a plastic toy. "Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best," Jake replied, wondering how he would explain this on his resume, if he ever made it back to Earth. 6 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of the Vexorian flagship, gazing out at the stars. His McDonald's uniform had been replaced with an elaborate ceremonial outfit that combined elements of Vexorian military regalia with distinctly Earth fast food touches, including a red visor that now bore the insignia of his new rank, Supreme Commander of Nutritional Warfare. Behind him, the door slid open with a hydraulic hiss. Warlord Krazak entered, followed by Lieutenant Miktha and Blorg. "The first intergalactic McDonald's franchise is now operational," Krazak announced proudly. "Already, 17 species have established diplomatic relations through what you call drive-through negotiations." Jake smiled. What had begun as a cosmic misunderstanding had transformed into something remarkable. The Vexorians had taken the concept of fast food and elevated it to an art form, with Happy Meals now considered the highest form of diplomatic currency in 3 galactic quadrants. "Have you considered our offer?" Miktha asked, having long since abandoned his initial skepticism of Jake. "The fleet would be honored if you would continue as our permanent nutritional commander." Jake looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there was Earth, with his tiny apartment and his dead-end job. Here he had found purpose, respect, and even friendship among the stars. "I've been thinking," Jake said. "What if we expanded the menu? There's this place called Taco Bell." The aliens looked at him with reverent anticipation, ready to absorb whatever wisdom their human food expert might bestow next. Jake smiled, realizing that sometimes the most unlikely journeys led to the most satisfying destinations. In the vast expanse of space, aboard a warship converted partially into a fast food restaurant, Jake Simmons had finally found his place in the universe. It wasn't where he had expected to end up, but as he gazed at the stars with his alien friends, he couldn't imagine being anywhere else. After all, the universe, like a Happy Meal, was full of surprises.